Michael from Acetech Inspections. Thanks for coming out today.
Thanks, Chris. I appreciate the call. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. So yeah, we're just kind of going to talk a little bit about today, about your services, a few things about what buyers and sellers should be looking out for when they're either selling or buying a home. And we can kind of, get right into it. I know we met, it's been a couple of years now when I first started into real estate.
How long now?
Time
flies, eh?
I know, we're coming on 2 years. It's been, it's been a wild ride. I mean, it started right in the pandemic in May. So yeah, we're coming up on the 2-year anniversary here in the spring. So it's been quite something. But we've worked on a few jobs through those couple of years and had some really great experiences. So the idea is to kind of help people link in with my network and hopefully bring some awareness to your business and also the industry and home inspections. I mean, real estate's the hot topic now.
Right.
So we want to keep people informed so they know what to look for when selling, to prepare, and also when buying. So how long have you been a home inspector?
It was 2019, so I think it's started February 2019. So 2020, 2021, 2022, I'd say about 3, is it?
Yeah.
Getting close, but yeah, that's when I started. February 2019. That's when I started my business.
Right on. And originally, you have a little bit of a different background. What kind of path did you take before in your prior life?
So my background, I do have 2 degrees in engineering. So I have my first degree in electronics engineering. I have another degree in industrial engineering, and then I did a lot of information technology. I became a technical specialist for pretty big companies. At least here I did 4 years with IBM, and then I had some other 7 years experience. So all around I was always in and about IT, engineering, but I had a lot of technology and engineering background before home inspections.
So that explains all the gadgets when we're out at listings. Right? You got a nickname, they call you Inspector Gadget, right?
True. Funny enough, I was I think it was someone who gave me that name, and I said, what, I'll take it.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, when we work together, it's nice to know that you're kind of checking everything, and sometimes you pull out stuff that I haven't even seen before. So it's just kind of reassuring, especially on my client's behalf, that you're so well equipped.
That's the least I can do, because my intention is to do the best job possible, and I'm always researching things that helps me do a better job. So it's not like I'm trying to be fancy with the gadgets. I just need things to help me do a really good job. How So the past couple of years, we kind of went through, quite a bit, pandemic,
this huge real estate boom. How have you had to adapt, your business? Was it affected at all, or was it kind of business as usual for you?
So, the pandemic affected everybody. It did affect me. And as you must know already, as a business person, you're forced to always, right, the way you change how you do business, adapt. So for me, I've had to change some things about business marketing, for example. During the pandemic, you couldn't get into offices, you couldn't do face-to-face meetings. There are a few things you couldn't do in person, and then we resulted to a lot of Zoom meetings. Personally, I did a lot of social media marketing and all of that. So it helped me hone my social media skills. So it's been tricky. It did affect the business, but hey, that's what being a business owner is all about: adapting to the difficult times and moving on.
Yeah, absolutely. I can definitely attest to that, having started right in kind of the thick of it. As a realtor and an entrepreneur, business person, very like yourself, it's important for us to be able to get out there and meet people and
Sure.
Make that business happen. So it was definitely challenging for some, but like you say, it allowed us to kind of adapt our ways of working and kind of hone some new skills that hopefully will be beneficial, moving forward. I mean, talk about social media, this is kind of, one of my kind of stepping stones to try and kind of make social media prospecting, meeting people a little bit more fun. So yeah, I mean, definitely. So tell us a little bit about the services that you offer. You're not just, your average regular day home inspector. You do septics, you can do water testing. I mean, the list goes on. I mean, what services can people book you up for?
I do offer quite a range of services, and most of it is intentional. It was right from the beginning. That's part of how I wanted to differentiate myself, and that was also kind of me. Like, I'm that type of person. I'm able to come to grasp many things and many concepts. So I just split towards my strength there. So I do offer the basic or the standard home inspection, which will usually encompass condos, multiple residences, and the likes. But then I do also have this ancillary services, which will be sewer line, septic, radon, water quality, quantity, and the like. So I like to see myself as a one-stop shop. I like to be able to get to the house or to the property and be able to provide as much information, as much help, as much insight, which also makes it in terms of price and competitive, and in terms of organization or coordination of the resources needed. I find that it helps a lot with too. So I do offer quite a myriad. In fact, I'm also starting to get into home energy audits now. So sometime 2023, I might start getting into home energy audits officially.
Yeah, well, I mean, today everybody likes to know how efficient and sustainable, their kind of energy footprint is in their homes. So I can definitely see that being a positive. I can definitely speak for myself when I'm, booking out services for listings and or on the buying end. There's so much to keep track of, in life and in the business as well, that it's nice to be able to partner with somebody that can do it all. And so in saying so, do you find that most people will use you for all your services, or do they only get the basics? Like what's kind of the lay of the land?
Where I find it really useful, one part is sometimes you get into a home, your intention was to just do a home inspection, and then the buyer says a wood stove, like, hey, I think my insurance would like me to get a certification for the wood stove. So I find that realtors or clients are really happy that I'm like, hey, I can also certify this wood stove. Or sometimes during inspection or just shortly after, the buyer is so sure that, hey, I like this house, I want to buy it, and then it just pops to them like, you know what, there might be one more deal breaker, which is a sewer line. Can you do that? I'm like, yes, I can get on it. And it happens like that with all these services. The same thing, septic, are like, hey, I'd really like to close this really quickly. I feel like, hey, can you do this for me right now? I can do it. So I find that clients and realtors are happy that whatever is being thrown out there in terms of what needs to be inspected, I'm able to get it. And yes, I do have folks who will typically book me for a range of services. I always just say, hey, it does take a bit of an extra time. So I do understand that sometimes it might not be the best in terms of timing, but then those who already understand the how long it can take and they're fine with it, I usually find that they find it very, very convenient that, hey, they do some work while I'm working, and in just a bit of time, everything is all done, and that's it.
Absolutely. I mean, I can definitely attest to, one listing that we were on, originally the original home inspection was booked. We had I had briefly spoke about, checking out the sewer line. They were a little hesitant on it, and then, they attended the inspection, and then we were able to kind of, get that peace of mind and get that sewer line inspection done. And they, to your point, they're like, can you do it? And it's like, absolutely. So we got right to it and we got it done. So yeah, that's great. So, you have, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh, good. I didn't want to talk over you. So let's kind of get into some of the more, nitty gritty, we'll call it. Let's start on the seller's end. If somebody's looking to prepare their home for sale, are there any specific, say the 5 most important points, in where they should look to ensure they're not going to run into any problems, when the buyers come in, look at the house. Are there any things they can do to prep the house, that it is properly sale ready and ready for the market?
For sellers, and then from a few of the things that I've seen is, I think one thing that can be really good is transparency, even in problems. And I find that usually during inspection, one thing that can quickly become a turnoff is when it does appear that there might be intention to mask or cover up some issues. I find that buyers like to know what the issue is, as is, and then decide how or what will be the fix or how to go about it. I've also seen cases where sellers by themselves say, hey, we know there is a problem here, we've had this and that quote. It usually creates that trust, mutual trust between the buyer and the seller, and I find that those kind of buyers are happier. But usually when we get into the inspection and then we start to see some type of attempt for people to conceal things, it kind of erodes that trust, and buyers are like, So I would usually recommend to sellers that it's normal, every single house does have an issue or the other, whatever it is, just leave it open, leave it the way it is. Some sellers do a little extra and put a note to say, hey, this is what's going on here, we've had XYZ look at it. Great, I really love it even as a home inspector, because it makes my life easier. And that's that one. And number 2, I think, is in terms of preparation of the house for a home inspection. So many times we get into the house and we find that this house hasn't really been prepped for a home inspector. There's just things home inspectors will call inspection restrictions, because I'm sure you know that we're not allowed to move items around. We're not allowed to price, to say
Right.
so. We're just allowed to see the things that we're allowed to see right within our purview. But
Like
when it comes
non-intrusive.
to, exactly, I couldn't start moving things around because I'm looking for something, even if I know what I'm looking for is behind there. So it would really be nice. And again, it's the same thing. If I start to tell buyers, hey, I can't check this because this is here, this is
Right.
there, it creates some type of unease that they're not really excited that, hey, there are a few things we would have loved our home inspector to check, that items or things are all around the place. So I'd say yes, make some attempt to move things to a certain area where it doesn't obstruct much of the floor, walls, utilities, and all that. And then also some attempt to keep the place a little bit clean. I mean, that one goes without saying. It usually helps to have a good ambience around the place. And then I think there is also basic maintenance. Usually I'm sure that people don't wake up and then list the house the next day, right? You
Exactly.
probably think about it and say, hey, I'm thinking about selling. So as soon as you get that thought of selling, you should start to look at small maintenance items that you need to take. Because again, my style of home inspecting is, I'm not really just going to each problem or each area I see I'm picking problems. I'm generally trying to form an opinion of what the general behavior or culture of the home owner is in terms of maintenance and getting up to speed in terms of repair. So when I start to see small things here and there, I start to get worried. Hey, what kind of culture does this person have? What else am I going to find if they're letting small maintenance items like this slip? So I'd say, hey, catch the really small things, leaky taps, faucets not working properly, open junction boxes, open receptacles. Catch some of all these things quickly, some falling trim, some very, very easy fixes quickly, and then just make the house look a bit more presentable. And that usually helps me build confidence. Yeah, I think these guys like their home, they show the home love, and it must be in great condition.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, so basically what we're saying for, sellers, more importantly, is, just be transparent, when you have buyers coming in doing an inspection, and, don't try and hide anything. And, potentially even if you want to go a step above and beyond and there might be an issue behind something, and your realtor or your listing agent should make you aware that this is non-intrusive. So if you want him to be able to see that, you have to allow him the access, open it up. Otherwise, it could lead to like, what are they hiding there?
True.
And then it might affect the offer. Maybe it deters them altogether. So yeah, be transparent, be honest, and be prepared. I think just don't rush into things. And listing your house is no small task, and it's usually quite a monumental move for most people. So most people want to take good care and do it right. If I'm a first-time home buyer, and I don't really know maybe anything about homes, what should I be looking out for? While we're going through this inspection, to ensure that this is the right home for me or my client or so on.
So for me, I think I would say it starts with hiring right. Hiring right meaning hiring the right home inspector, because in the end they're going to provide some level of guidance to you. So you have to start by hiring the right person, especially as a first home buyer. It's going to be lots of information. It almost tends to be information overload, just because there's so much that you'd hear, and then you'd be told about the condition of home. But then I usually always say what matters is what matters, because in the end you have to bring the things to the right perspective, and that takes me to asking the right questions. Sometimes I get people ask me, should I buy the home or should I not buy the home? I don't find that question really helpful, because honestly I couldn't answer it. Not because I couldn't say yes or no, because if I said any of those answers, I might be doing you a disservice. So let's put it in this perspective. I say, hey, don't buy this home. I think it has too many issues, which I never do, but this is just for argument's sake. And then it turns out that you have a plethora of resources. Hey, your dad is a builder, and then your brother is a carpenter. I mean, I just steered you away from something that could have been a potential good deal for you. So hey, I'm not usually in that area when it comes to not buying or buying the home. I usually always ask the questions like, what's the impact of this? Does it affect me? Does it stop me from moving in immediately? Or when do I have to fix this? How is it something risky, or is it something more cosmetic? So that takes me saying, ask the right questions, and those will be the type of questions that I feel will be really, really helpful. The home inspector will elucidate on some of the issues they find, and that's the job of a home inspector, right? Is to find the issues out of the house and then present the condition of the house to the buyer. Then it's up to the buyer to look within themselves, within their resources, within their intentions, within their plans, and say, hey, here is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to buy the house at this range, and I think this is a good place for me. But then I expect that there might be a few issues. These issues that you brought up, what impact do they have to me? What impact do they have to my family? Do I have to fix them right now? Do you have an idea of how much it might cost? So things like that. And it all depends again on the condition of the house. If it's a house in a fairly decent condition, those things usually come up. If it's in a different type of condition, it might be a different set of questions. But in the end, for a first-time home buyer, they'll have to do a lot of trusting of their home inspector, because there's just lots of information out there that even if he went on to elaborate on many of all those things, it will just become information overload, and it might leave them even more confusing. So yeah, hire right, do your research, Google reviews, don't just look at the stars, read the detailed review. If the inspector does have a bad review, read the detail of why they had a bad review. Check the check the home inspector on BBB, check their business, check their social media presence, check his background, check does he have continuing education, check his associations, does he or she have lots of associations and all that. That starts with hiring right. And then number 2, during the home inspection, right, ask the right questions. Go around by yourself. No question is stupid or anything. Some home inspectors work differently. Some like to have the conversations in the end. Some are okay with having it right in the middle or just along. Whatever works for the home inspector. But then also ask the right questions. But in the end, for a first-time home buyer, especially most times first-time home buyers are on a budget, right? So for a first-time home buyer, I'll say, hey, let's go through the most basic things. Hey, you need a roof over your head. What's the roof condition like? we want to make sure you're not getting into a failing structure or a structure that you need to spend tons of money right away. Failing structure is also has a safety concern in terms of you. So that's one thing that good home inspectors are trained to look out for. Big money items and things that have negative impact on your health or your safety of your family. That's usually a no. We usually elucidate on those quickly. And then we move into plumbing. Plumbing is usually hidden within the walls. Problem with the plumbing, it can be a huge expense and it can be a huge problem. So moving to plumbing, likewise electrical. It's always behind the wall. You can't see this thing. Small problems, difficult to find, can become big money items. So it's usually about the plumbing, electrical, roof, structural, and then the heating, because hey, this is kind of right. What is it today? -1 or minus something.
Yeah.
So heating and all that. Once those things are fine, I feel the rest can almost fall into more cosmetic category, for which hey, you also typically say you get what you're paying for. I mean, if many of all these things are in pristine condition, the price will probably reflect the same way. And if you're on a budget, you should be able to look at some things and let it slide and focus on these major things that I've talked about.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, more importantly, I guess, like you say, it's important to do your research. I mean, even if you're new, I mean, buying a house is no smaller task than selling it. So do your research. It goes to say the same thing for your realtor. Don't do your research on your realtor. Don't just take your realtor's word for everybody that he has. In terms of referrals. It's important to do your due diligence. Like you say, ask the right questions. I had $1 million when we bought this house. Like you say, no, there's no dumb questions. Ask away. One thing I wanted to talk about that I had, some questions on. I've kind of been running into this, a few times now. Septic systems. Are you seeing a lot of issues with these? Like, what's the lifespan on them? Kind of.
Okay.
Do you have any insight on those? I know I kind of snuck this one in on you.
No,
I've kind of ran into
no.
a couple of instances, and it's kind of just caught me by surprise that they seem to be more frequent than not.
No, it's okay. I can take it. I know what I know, and I don't know what I know. So I don't
Right.
know outside though. But yeah, septic is. I've taken most of the training for septic, and I do understand how those things work. What I find with septic is it depends on how old. So usually it starts from when there isn't any documentation. So when I ask for documentation, what I'm trying to get at there is I'm trying to understand if this was a standard design, because usually when systems are selected, either by a QP or an engineer, I know what to expect in terms of the layout for the bed, in terms of when I snake the pipes, what kind of configuration I'm expecting to see. Is it an area bed? Is it C1, C2, and all that kind of stuff, raised C2 and all that kind of stuff. So usually documentation is key. So when there's no documentation and then the system is older, we start to get into non-conventional systems. So usually when it comes to non-conventional system, it ends up being being what whoever installed it, what they knew about septic systems and how well they did it. In all honesty, if I looked at 10 septic systems, 5 to 6 might fail. And usually that failure comes more with the septic bed not being able to drain the expected volume of water. That usually happens because, hey, the bed dimensions, it wasn't sized right for the size of the house. Sometimes the house gets way expanded more than what the systems were designed to cater. Sometimes things around the lot just changes, but many times what I find with septic system is the bed isn't taking as much volume as it's supposed to take, or it's just not even being drained into soil. So many times the pipe just goes somewhere onto a rock,
Right.
onto a stream, or somewhere around, and then that's why usually we do something called a dye test, because in the
We
end,
did one.
we put dye in the system, and then we're hoping not to find it, because then if I can find it, it just means, hey, here's where your F1 is going to. The expectation is that, hey, it goes down into the ground, and then based on the science, hey, when it goes down 1 meter into the ground, it's supposed to be clean enough to be able to join other water bodies. It needs to do a good job separating the solids from the liquid, because again, failures can come from an old tank or tank that's corroded, and then that's not properly reinforced. The old tanks, honestly, they can just disintegrate on you because they've been holding liquids for so long. So separation is key because that also affects the bed. What I see a lot is people install a new bed on an old tank without even an effluent filter or anything. You're almost back to the same situation because what will happen is the life expectancy of the bed, let's say 20 to 30 years, becomes really short into almost 5 years or almost
Right.
any time because then you're putting an old tank that you haven't retrofitted with, let's say, an effluent filter or a baffle to help you filter the solids, and then the solids find their way into the field again. So yes, it's usually about the tank, good separation, field takes the right volume of water and is going right into the ground and not ending up where we don't want it to.
Awesome. Well, I know now more about septic systems than I think I've ever had, but we've seen a few, on some jobs. I was kind of curious, I guess I wanted to ask, kind of your path to kind of becoming an inspector, or how to, how did you kind of find your way there, I guess, and if anybody else wanted to become an inspector, do you got to take a course? Is there an education program? Kind of,
Yeah, so there is education. So there are a couple bodies. There is CAPI, Canadian Association of Home and Property Inspectors. There is International Certified Home Inspectors. I think those are the two dominant bodies here in Canada. And then I think they do have education for folks who are looking to get into the home inspection. So they do. So you have to take their education. You have to pass their exams. And then it's not regulated here, so you don't have to do any Nova Scotia regulation. And then there's probably need insurance as with every business, and then more education. Honestly, it never ends in terms of
yeah,
education.
always learning.
Like no matter how long you've been in the industry, there's always something new. Just by the virtue of technology itself, just by the virtue of the world we live in, nothing remains constant in terms of how we do things. So there's more education, and then I think the biggest part of being a home inspector is getting business, so find a job. I don't know if you wanted to be like myself. I own and run Acetech Home Inspections. You have to know how to find business. You have to know marketing, sales. You have to almost be an all-rounder. But then if you're able to get into a position of employment, that's also another way to go.
Absolutely. So I think, the main message here is, you got to be able to adapt to change. Everything's always changing.
Right.
We always got to be learning, adapting to, the new trends out there, to capture, that business. So I think that's a great note to probably wrap up on. But before we finish up, where can people find your services? Do you have any social media? Is there anywhere people can follow you? Website? How do people get in touch with you?
Yep, the easiest way to find me is via my website. So my website is acetechhomeinspections.ca, Acetech Home Inspections with an S.ca. If you wanted to book a service, it's online, it's a schedule button, you can hit that one. My website is packed with tons of information. Just wanted to learn about me, learn about my business, or learn about homes generally. I have tons of articles in my blog. I write, I'm always thinking about what to write every day, so I'm always updating them. I do have social media at Acetech Inc, ACTCHINC. I do have Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Not really active. I find the limitation in what I can post there, share. It just makes it tricky. But I find that most of my information is on Instagram and Facebook, and then my website, and of course Google. I'm on Google. You can find me on Google. So that's my phone number, 902-8000-223. So that I get a few calls, even though I usually like taking it via the website because it just gives me all the information that I need at the same time. Then I do have a calendar where people can pick dates from, because then when people call me, they're like, oh, when do you have a chance? I'm like, honestly, I don't even know, because I'm just going to do the same thing, go to my website and check my calendar, correct? Yeah. So I'm like, if you wanted to book a service with me, the easiest way is via my schedule online button, because it does have my calendar, pops up my availability, and boom, that's it.
Yeah, well, thanks a lot. I can definitely attest to that. your system's very intuitive. It's very easy to book. A lot of times I'll book
Thank
the
you.
inspections for my clients so they don't have to. So yeah, we'll add some links so people can follow along and know where to book your services and contact you. I really appreciate you coming on and talking to us about home inspections and the industry. And I'm sure we'll be working together here soon.
Thank you, my man. It's my pleasure, Chris. I was
Awesome.
happy